Hello and welcome to Making the Cut, the podcast dedicated to everything plastic surgery, health, and wellness. I am your host, Dr. Patrick Basile, board-certified plastic surgeon from Jacksonville Beach, Florida. And I'm joined by my co-host, the amazing and talented nurse practitioner, Hope Gully.
Episode 2.
Episode 2.
Let's
Well,
go.
we made it through the first one.
We sure did.
And we're getting a little bit more comfortable. Of course, there's little tweaks here and there.
Little things we're learning, you know.
I think the natural progression of a podcast is, if you look at any that are like really like have grown, is when you go back and look at those first two, it's pretty funny. So
I'm excited to look back.
I'm sure after we get to episode like 100, we'll be like, oh my God.
Like, oh, we didn't know what we were doing.
Why did we do that?
Yeah, that's fun.
But no, I'm very excited. The first episode, we kind of talked a little bit about the state of the union.
Yes, yeah.
Where plastic surgery was. Obviously, as we go through our episodes, we're going to be hitting more and more of those individual topics.
Right.
But I think what we're going to do is kind of play Meet the Hosts.
Yeah. Say, who are these people?
Yeah, who are these people and why should we care?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Dr. B, I want you to kind of walk us through like your career, which I know is pretty hefty. And, we could talk hours and hours about your like amazing career and all the people you've helped and all different sorts of walks of life. But tell us kind of my first question that I'm super interested in, like love hearing you talk about is like, what made you interested in plastic specifically?
Yeah. So I think we got to even go back further than that.
Okay.
Let me kind of give you
rewind
an idea about like where I've come from and why I do what I do. So I was actually born in an orphanage in Bogotá, Colombia, and I was adopted by a wonderful family from New York. Mm-hmm. And they kind of raised me like I could do whatever I wanted to do. They're really my cheerleaders. But my mother did tell me a story about when I was like 8 or 9. She came in the house once and saw I had a plate out with a dead frog on it and a butter knife. And she goes, "What are you doing?" And I go, "I want to see what's on the inside." And I think my whole life, I've always wanted to see what's on the inside.
Yeah.
And whether that was technology or the body. And so, I always thought I was going to do some type of medicine.
Sure.
Initially, probably more like heart surgery because heart diseases are so rampant in my family. And then as, ER came out, I got interested in emergency medicine and then finally trauma surgery. But when I was in medical school, I had really great mentors. And especially my anatomy professor, Dr. Berg, who, if you're listening, Dr. Berg, you're the best. But Dr. Berg was our anatomy professor. And in my first year doing anatomical dissections, he saw that I had good hands and a big interest. Like I'd spend a lot of time after hours just learning, doing dissections and learning about anatomy. And we talked and he goes, "What do you think you're going into?" And I go, "I don't know, some type of surgery." And he goes, "Have you thought about plastic surgery?" Now, I'm going to put on my plastic surgery of what I thought it was.
Sure.
And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to just do, like make people look weird and everything." And he's like, no.
Right.
It's an amazing field that, you literally operate from head to toe of all ages. And that kind of intrigued me.
Yeah.
And so much so that he pointed me in the direction of my mentor, Dr. Anthony DeBoni from Syracuse, New York. And I called Dr. DeBoni up and I said, "Hey, I'm interested in plastic surgery." At the time, I think I was like a second-year med student. And he's like, "Sure, why don't you come shadow me?" So like, I think I actually had to cut class to go shadow him.
No way. Wow.
But like, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And
opportunity.
So when I got to the operating room, I could already hear the music outside. And I think it was like Chili Peppers or something.
Oh, which is huge for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I get into the operating room and he's like, "Hey man, come here," and like, again, at the time I was just a student kind of watching, but they were getting ready to do, at the time what was called a free tram or a free microvascular transfer for breast reconstruction.
Oh,
and
amazing.
Again, at the time I had no idea what this was, but like, you obviously take tissue from another part of the body and you're building a breast out and you're putting the blood vessels together under loop magnification or a microscope, and mine was blown.
Oh yeah. Did it kind of shatter what you thought plastics was in that moment?
1,000%.
Okay.
1,000%. Because all I thought it was faceless rhinoplasty and breast augmentation.
Yeah.
The things you see.
Of course. Yeah.
So he was like, "You can shadow me as much as you want." I was able to actually put an elective way in my second or third year. And I'd go into days with him. We'd do hand surgery, we'd do breast surgery, we'd do facial surgery, we'd operate on old people, young people. And he's like, you really gotta go to a place that has a plastic surgery residency to rotate through to really get the full gamut.
Yeah.
And so that's when he sent me to do a rotation at the University of Rochester with Dr. Joe Cerletti, who was his mentor.
Okay. Wow, what an honor too.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing.
So when I got there, again, this was another leap in understanding. Big time reconstructive craniofacial surgery, cleft palate, cleft lips, orthognathic surgery where we moved the jaws around, big time hand surgery, replants, everything. And of course, the microvascular work, and also a little better introduction into really what aesthetic surgery was. Learning like what it is, how you do it, and why.
Right.
And blown away.
Man.
I was like, this.
Were you kind of hooked? Like,
this is me, because I get bored a little easy, kind of doing the same thing.
Right.
And, my father-in-law, love him to death. He's an ophthalmologist and specializes in cataracts. And I went to spend a day with him, but it was like, 12 cataracts in a row.
Yeah.
And
very similar.
For me, it just wasn't like, and I know he says actually what he liked the most about his specialty was the relationships he had. Wasn't the technical was good.
Yeah.
But it was the relationships. And he is an amazing doctor. And I learned so much from him about being a very good doctor.
Definitely.
But when it came down to picking a specialty, I really wanted something that every day was going to be different.
Yeah.
And even if it was the same procedure, it was going to be different.
Exactly.
And then that incorporated anatomy. And then I liked the idea of operating on anybody from like kids to older adults.
Right.
And again, all that. So that was really fascinating. And I was hooked.
Yes. Yeah.
So the next part of the story about how I got into that, we'll have to save for another time, because that was just incredible.
Yeah.
But I was lucky enough to, then get selected through the match to go to train with Dr. Cerletti at the University of Rochester.
Amazing.
And that was an amazing time of 6 years, where I also did a year in the lab doing regenerative work with tendons.
Amazing.
Learning so much. And what I didn't mention was when I had gone off to medical school at Syracuse, I did so under a scholarship through the Department of Defense. So it was called,
amazing. Yeah.
It was, they basically paid for my schooling. And then at the end, I was going to owe them a commitment. So when I was done with training, it coincided with the launch of the Afghanistan war. And so that's when I was stationed was the National Naval Medical Center. And then 2 years later, as we combined with the Army, became known as the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And
you were needed.
For a young surgeon, because there was a group of us who were very young, presented with the wounds of war, because people now with the advances in body armor and vehicles, people are surviving these horrific injuries.
Right.
It was crazy. It was a crazy number of years that a lot of it I think I block out.
Yeah.
Because it was just like constant incoming wounded and fixing. But I got to tell you, that really pushed our limits, because one of the interesting things about our specialty is it's you don't learn just a procedure. It's like you learn a toolbox of things, and you have these toolbox to apply to a problem.
Exactly.
Which is why I also liked the field. It's just because you have a problem, and then you're gonna try to fix it with all the things you have.
Right.
And those injury patterns are ones that we had never seen before. And my partners at the time and we really wrote the book on wounded trauma, and since have been invited around the world to present that data and how we, did these reconstructions.
Yeah.
We also had academic appointments at Johns Hopkins and University of Pittsburgh with, we were part of the allotransplantation team. With research in adult stem cell fat grafting. So it was really cool, cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
That was without a doubt one of the best things I've ever been a part of. And, also we got the chance to take care of the entire in that area, the Fleet's family,
Mm-hmm.
also the White House staff and everything like that. So it was a real different, experience than probably a lot of people have
Definitely.
right out of training. But that kind of provided me the big basis to kind of tackle anything.
Right.
So as my time in the Navy was winding down and I kind of got what I wanted to call, or was really doing what I wanted to get, was a little bit of normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We wanted to get by family, and my wife's family is from Jacksonville, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So, 20, more than that now, like 30 years ago when we first got together,
mm-hmm.
and I asked her if we'd ever be coming back here, she said, absolutely not.
And here we are.
Because we wanted to be close to family. We had been away
yeah.
from family for so long and on our own.
Yeah.
And we decided to settle out in Ponte Vedra Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Great schools. We liked the area.
Mm-hmm.
And we started to do our thing, which I know we're going to tackle in another episode about our practice. But
right.
yeah, all those experiences kind of led up to where I am, and
Mm-hmm.
also provided me the perspective I have every day
Mm-hmm.
of really not like to sweat the small stuff. And,
Exactly.
and treat everyone the same.
Mm-hmm.
I had incredible mentors along the way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I always tell people is, it's not about where you train, it's who you train with.
Absolutely.
And I just happened to train with not only who I think are some of the best surgeons, but they're like the best people.
Yeah.
And that was a real honor.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, things happen for a reason, for whatever reason happened to me. And, but those really kind of helped create that foundation of, first, always do your best.
Yeah.
Never leave the operating room unhappy.
Yeah.
And just treat everybody as you want to be treated. And be grateful. Surgery is an honor. Like, for someone to like trust you to do this, it's like an incredible honor. And I think when doctors or surgeons forget that, like, why did we go into this to begin with?
Right.
Yeah. That it loses its luster. But I think you got to remember that.
Yeah.
And so that what excites me now is teaching. So I've always loved teaching. And when I was in the Navy, we had a medical school there, and we also got residents from Hopkins to come train with us. So teaching now has and always will be. I still do occasional visiting professorships, which is fun.
Yeah.
And we get to do some cadaver labs and things like that. I've started to do some work with the Mayo Clinic here in Jacksonville because they have a residency program now.
Yeah.
And the plan is to have their chief residents rotate with us through that. So
yeah,
that should be really, really fun.
That's going to be super fun. Yeah.
So again, it's paying it forward, trying to be that mentor for new and young surgeons, to continue to push the envelope in our specialty, because honestly, it is a young specialty.
Yeah.
We came out of the original First and Second World Wars with burn surgery and reconstructive stuff. Because again, people were, with the advent of penicillin and antibiotics, people weren't dying of infection. So now they have these blast injuries and stuff, and how do we put them back together again? So it's a young specialty, but I got to tell you, within even the last few years, the advances we've had are incredible. And that's, again, something that really excites me, is that it's ever growing. So, that's kind of where I've gotten. Again, I think we're going to dive into some other point into our practice and who we are and what we like to do. But that's my road into plastic surgery.
How we got here. Yeah. Well, I think what's really beautiful too is that the field of plastics, kind of like you, like I was surprised as well, because I had some preconceptions about it too. But I think you nailed it when it's just it's innovative. It requires creativity, but it also requires you to be a person. And because it's not every field and it's not every vocation where you have people coming to you saying like, these are my deep, dark things that I keep to myself, and like giving that to you, and like what a privilege that is. And I think that's something that you do very well, because you are creative and you're very innovative. And it just like, it's so cool to see when like life just aligns and it matches you.
Yeah. And I think, what has really helped, even though maybe at the time I didn't realize this, was in my undergrad at Boston College when I switched my major from biology to psychology.
Oh yeah. Huge help.
Huge help. Yeah. Because really, I didn't think recombinant DNA and everything was going to help me be a better doctor.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
But understanding how and why people do what they do has really helped me in my daily, a vocation of being a plastic surgeon.
Definitely.
So,
Well, and it's helped me because you've taught me so much in that too, of just like, having to take a step back and be like, okay, like we're people talking to people. And I think it's not a hierarchy. It's not I'm up here and the patient's down here. This is like a relationship,
And everybody has a story.
Everyone has a story.
Everybody has a background.
Yeah.
So that is so important to keep in mind because, you might come across someone who seems like they're grouchy or they're just angry.
Yeah.
But they have a story.
They do.
A lot of times they'll share it with us and it'll make a lot of understanding. But that kind of reminding is just kind of, and I remind the team all the time, I'm like, just be kind, be loving, be empathetic. And that is what, one of the things, again, I think sets us apart. So
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for walking us through how you got here and everything. And something that we do at the office all the time, which is super fun, is we have clinic days once a week. And in those days, it's hectic, it's crazy, but we love our team. And so we do a question of the day. So on the podcast, we're going to kind of start ending our podcast with our question of the day. So people get to know us and we get to know each other, which is the whole point. So today's, and the questions are always random. So they make no sense and have no correlation to what the podcast is about. So today's question of the day is, if you had to pick one country to go to in Epcot, where would you go?
Wow.
I know.
That's a good one.
It's a big one. We're talking food, we're talking drinks, experience.
I mean, because they're all so good.
They're so good.
My gosh, this is really hard. I really enjoyed going to China.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And it's just beautiful. It's clean, and the food is amazing.
Yes, and I think what I like the most is the cultural stuff, like the acrobatics they have there.
Yes.
And then, of course, the food and everything. So it makes it very interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah.
How about yourself?
I think I'm an Italy gal. I could just walk through Italy. Morocco was like a very close one for me, but I think for sure, like Italy is just, you walk around and there's flowers everywhere and it's just pretty. I love it.
Yeah, Italy's great. Of course, the food, the culture.
Definitely.
Of course, growing up Italian, I get a lot of that. So I like it, the variable
Need a
stuff.
little different, yeah.
But and I think other than China, I think the France is just great because they have a really good French restaurant there. So we tend to try to eat there because I think it's pretty much as close as you're going to get to Paris.
Something, especially here in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah, so good question.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Perfect.
Made me think,
I know, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us. This was episode 2 of Making the Cut. And we are look forward to hearing from everybody. If you have any questions or if you want to send us some topics you want to hear about, info@patrickbasilemd.com. And again, remember an E on the last name. And put attention making the cut. And we'll get back to you and we'll start incorporating your questions in and your ideas to make this about you, because that's why we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
We wanted a way to kind of reach out and share our thoughts and what we do with everybody else. So, but thank you, Hope.
Thank you, Dr. B.
All right. We'll see you.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.